All right, let's begin with our first big story for the show this morning. Dwindling power generation is causing concern right across the board.
Stone me a musician, really.
Absolutely, and you now have a song for.
have a song for
it's not NEPA anymore. It's PHCN.
That comes easy.
Yeah. Okay. Well, the plan, of course, is not to mock the power sector this morning. What we're trying to do is look at why it's really a challenge for power to be something that Nigerians can actually take for granted. So let's begin with this. Members of the Senate Committee on Privatization say there has been no significant improvement in the power sector performance 3 years after privatization.
This was the conclusion as the committee led by its chairman Ben Maurice Bruce toured distribution companies and power stations in Lagos. We have details of that in this report.
When the government handed the power sector over to private investors in November of 2013, it was to meet the yearnings of millions of Nigerians who had truly believed that the sector would be better managed without government interference. But 3 years on, the consensus is that the sector remains bogged down by the same level of non-performance that has held it down for decades. And this seems to be the same complaint from the Senate Committee on Privatization on this oversight visit.
We want to hear for ourselves across the value chain what the problem is. We need to understand what it is. There are many schools of thought. Do we cancel the privatization process? Do we change the privatization process? What do we do to fix the problem? Ultimately, the public, the taxpayers must have power. The privatized companies must make a profit, and the government must look good. If the government does not look good, then they cannot survive. So you have 3 problems, and these problems must be addressed.
For the investors, the challenges remain the same, and trying to fix them has become even more daunting. According to them, the Senate needs to assist them break the cycle of non-performance.
We were promised power of about 5,750 megawatts daily. That's what we were told. We all went to the bank and sought loans and got loans and used what was in those agreements to get the revenue or the money to pay for these discos. But from day one, power was never at 5,700. For a very long time, the highest we got was about 7% of what we were supposed to get. So from day one, the agreements were 40.
But when we go back to the floor of the Senate, we need to explain to the Senate and to the Nigerian people what we have seen, what we have done, and what direction we think privatization should take on one hand, and 2, how do we solve this power problem?
As Nigerians expect some level of positive activity to justify the faith in the private sector, one thing is sure, the era of finger-pointing has effectively ended.
Joining us now is Director Association of Nigerian Electricity Distribution Companies, Sunday Odunton. And also joining us is President, Consumer Rights Advancement Organization, Adeolu Ogunbanjo. Good morning, gentlemen. Thanks for joining us.
Good morning.
Good morning.
Thank you very much.
Yes, so here we are again. The question on the lips of Nigerians, 3 years after privatization, we're still struggling with getting out of darkness. And after so much money has been expended, 4 trillion
tell him not to apologize.
in 17 years.
Tell him not to apologize.
Okay. Before we start off in earnest, let's take a quick break so that we don't have any interruptions. Let's take that break now.
All right, if you just joined us, this is TVC Breakfast, and the first topic this morning is power generation, the dwindling nature of it. And of course, we have Mr. Odunton with us here in the studio, and Adeolu Ogunbanjo is also here with us. Adeolu Ogunbanjo is the President, Consumer Rights Advancement Organization, while Sunday Odunton is the Electricity Distribution Company. He works at the director. Okay, so let's kick the ball rolling.
Exactly. And my question to you earlier before we went on that break, why are we still struggling with lack of power?
Thank you very much. We're still struggling, and we're likely to continue to struggle for a while more, unless and until the liquidity crisis in the sector is addressed. And no matter what we say, politically or otherwise, no matter the sentiment, we have to sit down and face the facts, look at the figure, and not be afraid to face the issue as it is. What we have in the sector today is a very, very huge shortfall, which if we continue to allow it to, continue, or if we continue to pass the buck, like in the case of Nigeria, unfortunately, we the electricity distribution companies were the bad guys, were the one that everybody blames. The high and mighty find it very convenient to blame us for everything. And to get to a point where when there's if a fuse is blown in some highly placed people's homes, they will blame the discos. Well, we are not going to pass the box as far as we are concerned, and we're not in the game of blaming anybody. We are not in the politics of power supply. But there are two things in Nigeria. There is the business of power supply, there's the politics of power supply. In the business of power supply, to which we, discos, belong, what we see is we look at the figures. How can we make light electricity available to our people? But people also always need to understand the fact that we are distributors. And because we are distributors, because we are the one that people like Busolavi knows in her home, because we are the one that gives her the bill, and we always, relentlessly, always commence every engagement by apologizing to Nigerians. But they are the one at the receiving end. And the Nigerians I'm apologizing to are not all Nigerians. My apology is to those paying Nigerians, honest Nigerians, who pay, who are always willing to pay, who do not bypass their electricity. Then when we do all of that, when we look at the problem, why don't we have light? We don't have light, one, because generation is low. As distributors, I can only distribute to your homes what has been generated and transmitted to me. That's number one. But even those who generate this electricity, their cost has gone up. So when we talk about shortfall, we're talking about facts. We're talking about figures that exist. We're not just making up the figure. For instance, by the end of December this year, the shortfall in the system will be 809 billion naira. Those are revenues that were supposed to have accrued to the system between November 1st, 2013 and now. And unless and until we do something about it, I'll give you an example. We had a new tariff last year.
Yes.
It was approved in December 2015. But when they did the approval, the then board of NEC, our regulator, they said it should start from the 1st of February 2016. Nobody was talking about January. What that meant was, for January alone, there was a shortfall of 12.8 billion naira. So the issue is, between December 2015 and now, forex has gone up. The tariff recognized, the tariff only recognized the exchange rate at 197 naira to $1. The gas suppliers sell in dollar to generation companies. So their cost of generation electricity has gone up. They pass that cost on to us. There's no one for us to pass it on to. So the answer is, unless and until somebody somewhere, maybe in government, sit down and think about who is going to pay those costs for there to be cost recovery and for us to be able to generate more so we can distribute more. We'll continue to say the same thing over and over again. But for us, we are just distributors.
Let's bring Adeolu in here. A couple of factors really that he just mentioned, the liquidity, forex issue. But as a layman, as a voice for the voiceless, what do you have to say to this?
Thank you very much. You see, the average electricity consumer does not want to know the business of power. I mean, the business aspect, like you did say earlier, and the politics aspect of power generation. What we have done is we are customers or consumers to the electricity distribution companies, and we expect electricity. We also expect a fair rate, i.e. the billing system. But what do we have? Unfortunately, we are not metered. In fact, 90% of consumers in Nigeria are not metered as we speak. We have crazy bills, we have crazy estimated billings, and they expect consumer to pay. Without that contract, the meter is the contract and the nexus between the distribution company and the electricity consumer, and that is absent. To the average consumer, this is the electricity distribution companies are defrauding Nigerians by that bill. Again, yes, all the transformers are also metered. Unfortunately, the discos do not even read the transformers to distribute, to in fact share whatever as a community. Even if you cannot meter us, then read the transformer, and then you can now, distribute on estimated basis.
All right, so let me take that back to you then, Mr. Nduton. You heard him. The consumer is really not interested in the politics or the business of distribution of power. What the customer wants is, I switch on my light, it comes on. Yeah. So all of those background issues, they expect you to deal with. So why are you not dealing with them?
Of course we are dealing with them. And yes.
Because you talked about liquidity and all of that.
With due respect to Egbon, if I'm also in the aluta of consumer advocacy, I know what to say. Yeah, we know there are challenges, so we can go on talking about all of those. But I'm happy you mentioned partnership. There's no way you can have light in this country if the same consumer that he represents continue to be a bunch of thieves, most of them, and I'm talking most. And when you have that, people like him are very honest. There are a lot of honest people in Nigeria. Even where we have meters, even here in Magodo, just at the back of the fence, here, we have had calls to catch people here by passing their meters. Here in Magodo, highbrow area, supposedly. So the issue is, there are two ways to this.
Is that not because you as the discos, you're not closing those gaps in such a way that the consumer does not have any need to tamper with your infrastructure?
Thank you. Even when we catch the thief, what do? We do not have prosecution powers. We hand them over to who? Security agencies. In this case, Nigerian police. What happened? Go back there, 2 hours later, the guy has been let off. They will tell you, yes, it's a bailable offense. I'm a lawyer. And even though it's a bailable offense, it doesn't mean that when you bail somebody, the person should not come back again, or cannot take the person through the court system. So the system is, the whole thing is endemic. It's a systemic issue. If you say you have no light, I do not expect you to pay for light that you do not have. But if in 24 hours, you have 1 hour of electricity, that is very poor. That is not good enough. You need more than that. But that 1 hour, you are supposed to pay. What do we have in Nigeria? They will say, no, pay for what? Where is the light? If I give you a bill today, that bill is for this time last month in arrears. If I'm so unfortunate that by the time I give you that bill, you've not had light for the past 5 days, what you hear them say is that, where is the light? Can you see any light? That's the part
I doubt if anybody wants to pay for electricity when they have 1 hour out of 24 hours.
Oh, you have to pay for even 1 minute, because that 1 minute comes at a cost. That's what I'm saying. But I know for a fact, in fairness to Nigerians, that if you have more supply, if you generate more, and people see more electricity, the willingness to pay will be higher. But we should not lose sight of the fact that electricity is a product like any other product. And just because you don't have enough bottle of Fanta in your home, does not mean that that one single bottle, you can just continue to drink it and you don't pay for it. That's what we are saying has happened. And I gave the example the other time of Yalakara.
Yes.
The woman that fried akara on the street of Ikeja. That woman, you keep on going there, buying akara. Say, Mama, I will pay you next week. Mama, I will pay you. You are not paying for the akara. But the woman has to pay the person that supply her with the oil. She has to pay for the firewood. She pays for a lot of things. Those are the beans. Those are her own raw materials. If you don't pay for the small akara that you have taken, that woman will not be able to fry akara. So when we talk about the doomsday, we are not just scaring anybody. What we are saying is that unless something is done now and quickly,
so
one day we'll wake up.
Who is
that
that person that will take responsibility now? Is it not in the place of the discos to actually put systems in place that ensure that the consumer who uses electricity actually is made to pay? But we'll come back to that right after this break. Let's take a quick break and return. All right, you're welcome back. We're looking at dwindling power or electricity, as it were, in Nigeria. 3 years after privatization, what are the factors causing all of this? Well, our guest in the studio, Association of Nigerian Electricity Distribution Companies Director is Sunday Odunton. And also joining us is President, Consumer Rights Advancement Organization, Adeolu Ogunbanjo. Now, Mr. Adeolu, you've heard what Odunton has said concerning the Yalakara. If the consumer continues to buy, and he calls himself a consumer, you know, but buys freely, then there's a problem. How do you react to that?
Buy or steal?
I'm sorry.
We'll come back to that. Let's
I'm sorry.
hear your answer,
You see, I must tell Mr. Dunton that the consumer wants to pay. I must tell you that. However, he wants to pay in a prudent manner. What I consume is what I want to pay. How do you want me to cover your commercial loss or technical loss, like you have explained, by telling me I'm a thief if I bypass? I know that smart meters will control all this, but you are not even metering us. Because I know that smart meters do have camera, they have SIMs, and they will know when you tamper with those, but you are not even giving us. The other day, Ikeja Disco was saying that they do not have foreign exchange to buy meters. Sorry, there are meter manufacturers in Nigeria. Millions have been produced, they are not, it's not there. And Ikeja Disco should supply, distribute electricity. They should not, buy meters is not their core business. They should, leave that and give us meters so that you can get revenue. We will pay, we want to pay. Give us meters so that whatever we use is what we pay for.
All
that
right,
is what
Mr.
we are saying.
Odunton, really, Mr. Ogunbanjo here has raised an issue here, but I also want to tie down to the agreement which you put signed, has to do with the aggregate technical commercial collection loss. It is what you agreed to do when you came on board. So that you have power losses that people bypass should not be news to you. You knew this before you signed the agreement, and you agreed to work with this method. So what's the challenge?
Thank you very much. That's very interesting. Let me quickly tell Egbon that smart meters don't prevent bypass. We've done that. Ikeja has supplied, I will use Ikeja in this neighborhood, 27,286 smart meters so far this year alone. So, but even those smart meters are bypassed, what it does, it enables us to know that something has happened in your premises, like where you live in Ogba, in your estate. You know what goes on there with those welders that are stealing just behind the estate. But that's one. Back to the issue of agreement.
Yes.
The problem we have in the sector has to do with that agreement. It's only that we need to explain to you why it is not from that angle. Okay. The problem is that they wanted to sell the entities, and I think if the investors who bought this thing have done something wrong, I think the offense that they have committed was for them to have invested billions of dollars, including borrowing from bank, to invest in Nigeria. Maybe they should have taken their money to Bahamas and be enjoying the sun. Because when they wanted to sell the entity, the federal government, they signed a performance agreement with the investors. The performance agreement had certain things that they would do and that the investors would do. I'll talk about metering. One of those things is that we're telling this to you. You must meter your customers X amount of meters, let's say 100,000 meters every year for the next 5 years, as in the case of Ibadan Disco. Now, but on our own part, we will, because it's a regulated industry, we don't fix any price by ourselves. We are not the one that fix the tariff. It is not our business. It is the business of our regulator. So they said, now, as we are selling to you in 2013, you take over 1st of November 2013.
Yes.
And this is very important. By between 2014 and 2016, generation will be minimum between 5,000 megawatts and 7,500 megawatts. What did we have? Between 2,000 and 3,000 megawatts. Lower than what they promised.
As we
That's
speak
number
today,
one.
where does it
Number
stand?
two,
How many megawatts are we producing?
we are
or
hovering,
generating?
we are just hovering between 3,500 and 3,800, really.
All right.
So they promised that. They also promised that the tariff will reflect reality in the market. That is to say, because tariff is tied to everything in terms of cost. Gas suppliers sell to us, to the generation companies, in dollar, not naira. And the generation company then sell their own at the prevalent rate. Even that time, the dollar was about 150 something. Now, by last year, it was 197. Today, we all know what the story is. I'm sure it's not less than 300 and something.
And
officially.
inflation
So
there
what
too
we're
was
saying,
about 9. But let me
as you
interject
keep on
you.
having that, I just want to
Inflation,
explain.
yeah, let me interject you.
Yes.
Inflation too then, that is the cost of people buying things, the cost
Yes.
of goods, and your cost of living was about
Yes.
9 point something percent.
Yes.
Today is about 17.6%.
About 18.3 as a matter of
18.3 as a matter of fact, really.
Yes.
So Nigerians are paying even more, spending more to even just stay afloat.
Okay, and I'm
So
not telling
just
you
like
that,
you're complaining
I'm not
from
telling you
your
that you
own
have to-
side, Nigerians are also complaining from their own side.
No, you have to factor that cost of inflation that you're just talking about ought to have been factored into the tariff. Because we're talking about cost recovery. We're not talking about profit. We're talking about cost recovery. And what I'm saying is that they now said from day one, we'll give you the appropriate tariff that will reflect reality. So what happened? Just before, after they have signed all the papers, just before takeover, the government told the incoming investors, don't worry, we cannot increase tariff now. What we are going to do is that we'll give you subsidy. We will pay for the shortfall. Initially, it was 100 billion that they promised. They did not pay 1 naira.
Till date?
Till today, the last government and the current government. So that has not happened. So number two, when you now have a tariff that does not reflect the cost of production, you then begin to have that shortfall. That's what I'm talking about. If it costs you 10 naira and you're selling at 6 naira, somebody needs to come up with the 4 naira. Now, we continue that. Then 2015, the same government said they should freeze the R2, a particular tariff class, which is the one for residential, which is the vast majority, because they wanted to do an election. That is political. That's what I speak about, politics of power supply, as against business of power supply. When they did that, it's like saying, give my people free electricity so that I can win election, presidency, last year. So that left us with another big shortfall. Election came and gone. Another set of people won the election. The one that caused the problem is not there anymore. One that caused the problem is not there anymore. Those that won inherited the shortfall, and they say there's no money. Of course, we can see it because the price of crude oil has gone from $100 per barrel, it came down to 42 naira.
Yes,
So
indeed.
all those
We
things
appreciate
has
all of these
affected
factors that you're
the
talking
system.
about. Inflation, exchange
Forex,
rate, gas price, generation
lack
capacity,
of cost-effective tariff.
and all of that.
Yes,
No meters.
You did talk
that's why
about,
you don't have meters. That's what I'm saying.
what about fundamentally,
Yes.
infrastructure-wise? Does Nigeria have what it takes as far as infrastructure is concerned so that whatever other issues surround this electricity supply will be temporary, but the basic foundation that should be there, infrastructure, do we have the infrastructure in place?
We inherited a very dilapidated infrastructure, which has been improved a lot in the last 3 years, but not enough. What we need to do as a nation We cannot continue to generate between 3,000 and 4,000, even 5,000, and then we are singing hallelujah. We must move towards increasing generation to as much as 20,000 megawatts, whatever it will take to do that, and whatever it will cost to do that. But that is for the government. That is not for any Genco to decide or for Disco to decide, because the investment required in that one is huge. What do? We need foreign direct investment. How many foreign investors are willing to stake their money in Nigeria? They will only come when they are sure that Nigeria has changed in terms of our own corrupt tendencies. And all of this, we are operating in a society, in an environment. It is not a standalone structure or industry. So without blaming anybody, what I'm saying is that what we need to do is to first address the liquidity issue. Once we solve that, there'll be money to improve and expand the infrastructure. There'll be money to provide meters. There'll be money to do all those transformers. Once we do all of those, then we'll continue to have increase in generation, because there'll be money to pay the gas suppliers. If we continue to leave that as if they are not important, then you won't have light.
There is money already for meters. There is, in 2014, 30 billion naira was released by the past administration, and is not being utilized for meters.
Can I reply to that?
Yes, you can.
Yes.
I'm itching all the time. The last time I saw you on TV saying this,
Yes.
I was really, really cross. You know why, Egmont? Check your facts before you make public statement. We are
I
national
am
TV.
telling you there
now,
is
what are the
now that you have said there's
billion
money,
naira.
please, I think you now need to speak to the Honourable Minister of Power, who should have the record in his office. Because I can tell you that we, DISCOs, the 11 electricity distribution companies, since 2013, have never had any access to that so-called money. And that's why I will not go on national TV to talk about what I do not know.
But did you have a pledge in principle from government that this amount of money was going to be injected into the sector?
No,
It was
not that I
in the
know
papers in
of. What I know
2014.
was that before privatization, a lot of money exchanged hands within the system. And the system was a single corporation owned by the government called PACN. So a lot of things were done, especially on they want to do metering and everything. But we came on board and still met a metering gap of over 5 million people without meters.
Okay, all right.
So that is something you need to direct to the government.
Okay, Mr.
And I'm
Let's
saying it on
hold,
national
just
TV,
hold
we
on,
have not
Mr.
received
Adeolu.
any money.
Let's bring this particular dimension to this topic now. The issue of debt be owed by government, MDAs and all that. For an ordinary Nigerian, if you're owed, you'll be disconnected. But for these MDAs, for these ministries and departments and parastatals of government who are owing, according to you,
How do you handle it?
how do you handle it?
Well, we'll have to go
We
on.
have to go on a break right now. Okay, so when we come back, then it will be time for you to answer, and of course we'll redirect to Mr. Odunton. Stay with us, please.
All right, you're welcome back. We're looking at dwindling electricity in Nigeria. Our guest in the studio is the Director, Association of Nigerian Electricity Distributors, Sunday Odunton, and also with him is Consumer Rights Advancement Organization, Adeolu Ogunbanjo. Let's stay with you, Mr. Adeolu. You were saying something about this 30 billion that had been set aside for the distributors. Mr. Odunton says
Meters.
to provide meters.
Yes.
But Odunton is saying no such thing has happened. Not even a promise in principle from government. So where do we go from here?
Well, I know that that money was released. However, we'll pursue that and ensure that that money comes out. But beyond that is
What year was that?
2014.
No.
You
2014.
have your turn,
You-
please.
yeah.
Just
Now, I think
Important.
government is owing the DISCOs, I do agree. Perhaps, maybe we should call for a national emergency on power, because like telecoms and petroleum, power affects everything. In fact, where, power generation is adequate, then Nigeria's economy will boom. I think there should be a national emergency to be declared on the power sector, so that all the MDAs, the ministries, departments, parastatals, and agencies of government that are owing and crippling distributors, they will pay up. And then at least perhaps we might see, them having, pulling out of liquidity and investing on power generation.
The Minister of Power had said that the lack of transparency is an issue here when it comes to this debt being owed, and that you rather go on the television, on radio, and fight a war, that the discos should come up and spell it out in Naira and Kobo, each discos. This is what is being owed me. This is what is owed by the federal government. Then they can deal with the issue.
Now, let me
the discos blackmailing government?
We have, that is totally unfair. That's a very wrong statement. If truly the Honorable Minister said that, I want to believe that it's either it was misquoted or he said it and he quoted it out, it was quoted out of content. Number one, let me say here, and I want the minister himself is watching to come out and dispute this fact. From the office of the Vice President, they sent out a template, and we are doing all of this through ANET. We are the clearing house for all our members. We collect all the data, all the information. I even have it here, which is the list of debts being owed by all the MDAs. And they asked us to submit, all these schools submitted, first time, second time, third time. The current one that we have is another one. What you just have it, they will now send a letter. Oh, this is a new template that you now need to use. Please submit. And I admit that the last one has not been fully, not all members have submitted that yet. Last one as in the last 1 month. What happened to all the ones that we have submitted throughout the year, from early in the year? So why I'm not going to start blaming anybody or the minister himself. We should be careful not to make things look as if,
yes,
the truth is that the MDAs are owing, nobody is disputing that.
You have not given us a figure. We read every now and again, it's somewhere around 809 or so billion.
No. 809 is not, when we are talking about MDA debt, it's not about 809 billion. That one is the shortfall
53,
in the
the
industry
shortfall.
As a whole.
Okay, so
MDA
do we have
debt,
a figure
we are talking about the bills. We have pre-privatization bills. We have post-privatization.
Okay.
We are concerned with what they've been owing since November 1, 2013.
Since you took over.
Okay? And we have quite a lot of them. There was a time everything came to about 93 billion from our own estimation. But remember, there's also an interest of 10% charged by MBET for our own failure to pay fully for the energy that we receive. When you put all of those things together, the debt being owed today, what is outstanding is not less than 100 billion. And that is the reason for the advert that we did. We didn't do any advert to blackmail any government or anybody. Power is transient. Government come, government go. We have witnessed another government before this.
Yeah, but
and
if
we'll
the
still be around to
government
witness
say
another
you
one.
should break it down
We have done that. That's what I'm
individually,
saying.
not
we have
a
done
lump
that.
sum. Okay?
No, we have done the breakdown, each agency, and they know. So what we are waiting for is that they have said that they are now doing verification. I want to believe it's another verification. Because we started this thing with the last government. Government is a continuum. Unless they are saying that the previous government were wrong or was wrong in their own, and the thing kept on increasing anyway. So if the debt has not been paid, say this is November, by February next year, I'll be giving you another figure. So that is why we have different figures coming up, an increase every month. But the truth is what we need to understand. Are the MDAs owing the discos? The answer is yes. Are they debtors? Yes. Are we creditors to them? Yes. If you are owing me money and you have not paid, you are still a debtor. Don't tell me. You cannot tie my legs.
So do you have the capacity? Do you have the capacity then to ensure that this MDAs actually pay up?
Or can they be disconnected? Because that is in the principle of fairness.
Okay, I will give you an example. Even in the north, somewhere we have had to disconnect even a military establishment. We even attempted one time to disconnect Ikeja cantonment. They beat off our staff, and they've been doing that. That is like the norms. And at a time, some military, senior military officers told us that was late last year, that some of those armories need to be cooled, and if you disconnect them, that there could be problem. They now mention what happened in Ikeja cantonment some years ago, right? And they said there's a need for there to be power there. That's why we have not been disconnecting the military. But the other agencies, we have done that. Not long ago, Abuja Disco disconnected Abuja Airport. And they quickly came forward and made part payment. But they are still owing. What you find is that everywhere, let me talk about Abuja alone. If I come forward today, even with National Assembly bill for the month, you will see whether they pay in full or not. They don't pay in full. What we have is a system whereby they will consume electricity and they will just make a little part payment. And all of this, we began to talk, and we believe that the government is sincere and they are really willing to solve the problem now. That is why we don't want to join issue with the minister, because sometimes when the minister speaks, sometimes I just wonder, is it him that we know? Maybe not him, because he may be under pressure.
Yeah, part of what he's been saying is that distributors should patronize on the issue of meters.
I cannot promise you that we will not be shouting about MDA debt until it is paid.
Okay, so Mr.
The debt is not paid now. Who is saying we should not talk? You cannot tie my leg and say I should be running.
Absolutely.
You want me to run and you're tying my leg?
Okay. You would appreciate the fact that the distributors are really being owed and their hands are tied. They cannot deliver. So the consumers you're protecting, are the MDAs within this bracket?
Unfortunately, DISCOs keep punishing the ordinary consumer. MDAs are owing, you can't deal with them, but the ordinary Nigerian who is the electricity consumer
will be disconnected.
will be disconnected, despite the fact that you are not doing the needful. You are not supplying him with meter. It is available here. There was a particular time, CAPME. What happened to CAPME?
Thank you, I will say it.
Hold on.
You say it, hold on.
What's CAPME for the benefit of
CAPME is the credit advancement metering initiative, where the consumer advances in he advances some money, which is I think 30,000 or 35,000, and then meter is supplied, and then it is now defrayed, through the DISCO until about 12 months. They stopped that. Why? I still want to have meter. You are saying I can't even advance, and these meters are available. The standard meters as approved by Standards Organization of Nigeria is available here in Nigeria. Millions have been produced. It's not being patronized. And you are saying you don't have foreign exchange to import meters.
Yes, as a matter of fact, the BRF himself, the Minister for Power, has actually called on DISCOs to patronize this local manufacturers of meters.
Okay,
so no meter manufacturer can or will come forward to this studio to say they are not being patronized as of today. Probably they were saying that 2 years ago, even up till early last year, because we had some issues with them then. They do not manufacture everything inside the meter in Nigeria, 100%. There are foreign exchange components to their own business too. But I'm happy to say that we have a very good working relationship with them. The CAPME that Egbon mentioned,
yes,
we get all those meters from local manufacturers, not a single from foreign.
But why have you stopped it?
CAPME. Thank you. I'm happy that he has raised that. Please help us to beg.
Is it because you want to give us estimated billing and crazy billing?
I'm now asking Nigerians, fellow Nigerians, please help the DISCOs to beg the Honorable Minister of Power, Works and Housing, Mr. Baldwin Bashola SAN, and help us to beg our regulator NEC. Current acting leader of NEC is Dr. Tony Aka.
Yes.
Those two people are the one that you can beg to please return CAPME, because we are not against CAPME. We are happy to meet our customers. It was stopped by the regulators and of course backed by the government. So if they didn't stop it, we'll be happy now. So we want that, because any gap that we can bridge, and they stop it saying that we should just go and meet our customers, which is okay, but we can only meet our customers when we have money to meet our customers. With the liquidity problem, you can't have it the quantity that we want to do. So we are not the one that stopped CAPME. It is this CAPME was stopped by the regulator, supported fully by the government. They are the one that can tell Nigerians why do they erase that option by people who are willing to buy meters. Why do they stop that? Did they stop that to blackmail we DISCOs? We can now accuse them of blackmail too, because why did they stop that? Let people buy meters and then get the money back through credit. Why stopping it? Who is doing what? And if they say because it has not been done properly, some people are not metered within time, that's why we have a regulator. Do your job. sanction us, fine us, deal with us. If you don't do your job and you're now saying no more capping, now people will not have meters the way it should be. That's
So what happens to where those meters are already installed? The meters are installed and they are not even billed through that meter, and at the end of the day they are disconnected.
Well, when people talk
And the
about
customers
meters being
actually provide
installed,
transformers and
when you talk
wires
about
for themselves.
when you talk about meters being installed, that some people have meter in their home and they're still getting estimated billing.
Yes.
I think that's what you're trying to say. Now, some meters that were installed pre-privatization, a lot of those meters, if not most, the integrity of those meters are in doubt because they are not working properly. That's not the fault of the consumer. Meters are like cars. Carburetor in your car have
So will your money
what do
be
you call it? There's a
would you get a
number of
refund
years
of your money?
after which you have to change.
Would you get a refund of your money because you paid for that meter in the first instance?
Those who paid for the capping meter get a refund via credit. Every time you go and vend, when you go and buy credit, if you buy 30 units, and Edmond can confirm that, you know that is the truth. If you buy 30 units, there will be an extra maybe 4 units, gradually like that until your money is refunded with 11.5%
Is
interest.
it the
Within
same?
12
Is it the
months.
same situation then? Because some consumers are already throwing in their questions, though we're not taking it on air. They're saying, what about places where you provide? They provide their transmission
Yes.
transformers,
Transformers,
their transformers,
cables.
their cables, and
Yes.
all of that. So, and you still bill them.
Oh, yes.
Oh, why?
It is very wrong for us to have a system whereby people buy their own transformers.
It's what?
It is very wrong.
Okay.
I'm from Abeokuta. For those who are in Abeokuta, there's a place called Elite Road. That's where I live. In my house, I've had to pay severally in the community to repair transformers. I feel ashamed. It is the job of the discos to do all of that.
Thank you.
And we cannot continue, we cannot be talking as if we have done well enough. There are a lot more for us to do. Even in terms of customer service, we still need to do a lot more. Now, there's a place called Magboro near MFM. They spend their money, before privatization, they bought their own pole, their cable, their transformer, everything, yet they did not have light. When we came on board, I was at Ibadan. We tried our best to give them power, but the span was too long, we couldn't. Now, Ibadan has invested so much, and they are now constructing a new line, a transmission line from Abeokuta to that place. So, we are trying, but the problem I keep saying is liquidity. If in your business, you have a requisition for 200 transformers, and the money in your pocket cannot even buy 10, I've told you, you cannot ask me to run, but you have tied my 2 legs. If you tie my leg, I cannot run. Oh.
Okay.
Yeah, but you've tied
I
the
cannot
hands
clap
of
with one hand.
Nigerians, asking them to clap too
You cannot clap
when
with
they
one
buy
hand, though.
transformers.
We have
Transformers.
to wrap this segment, but Mr. Ogumbanjo, say something about all of this. What's the way forward?
Well, the way forward, sincerely, because power drives the economy, just like I said earlier, telecoms and diesel and petrol. There should be a national emergency to be declared in this sector, and the discos should please understand that the electricity consumer should be billed according to consumption through supply of prepaid meters.
All right.
So we'll have to leave it there, gentlemen. Thank you so much. It's been a stimulating one. Director, Association of Nigerian Electricity Distributors, Sunday Odunton, and President of Consumer Rights
The man with
Advancement
apologies.
Organization.